the situation in the Middle East and the differences between Zionism and Judaism. I know many of you do not believe in the New Testament or the gospel of Jesus Christ, but the coincidences, if you want to call them that, or the occurrences in today's world mirroring the book of Revelation, even if you do not believe in Jesus, you cannot deny what's happening in the world today. Referring to Revelation 2:9, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And this is true. They're Luciferian Masons, the Rothschilds. So when they talk about the Jewish banking families, the Illuminati, the highest levels of them are the Rothschild family, one of the Illuminati, one of the powerful ones, the most wealthy, certainly. And they're working towards an order, the order, Masonic order for a one world government, the New World Order. This is the whole reason why I speak these things, because I know them to be true. I've done the research, and I don't ask you to believe me, but please research every word I say, because I speak the truth. Again, Revelation 2:9, King James Version. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which they say are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Now these false Jews are bringing about war, destruction. They are oppressing peoples in all continents of the world. To clarify this, what two countries did we invade after 9/11? Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, what happened? We toppled Saddam Hussein's regime, established a Rothschild central bank, and we did the same in Afghanistan. It's very easy to see the picture, if you care to take a look.
Everything I'm telling you can be found almost in this book entitled Foundations, Their Power and Influence, which I strongly recommend to you. But Congressman Wayne Hayes, during one 185-minute period, interrupted the hearings 235 times. Why? Because he wanted to disrupt the hearings. They did not want the hearings to take place. Basically, of course, as the committee proceeded with its investigation under the direction of Congressman B. Carroll Reese, under the direction of the Chief Counsel, Renee Wormser, and under the guidance of the Director of Research, a man named Norman Dodd, who you're going to hear from later in this tape, they began to uncover incredible things. And, of course, one of the first things was that the great foundations were being used to change America. They were being used to change us from a free society into a socialist society into a fascist society. They were being used to change America from a sovereign nation into simply one more state in a new world order, into a new world government. They talk on page 204 of the book about the investigations into what the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace had done. And basically, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace had been endowed specifically to bring about world peace. Now, how do you bring about world peace? Well, they decided they had a great idea. They'd bring about war.
So Israel is part of this evil thing. And many Christians actually must, because of the Bible, have to defend Israel. But they're misled, because they're actually following Satan. They're following the goal of the deception. And if you go against them, then you're an anti-Semite. And this will come out in the Norman Dodd interview from 1982, ladies and gentlemen, 1982.
The charge of anti-Semitism is kind of intriguing to me. What was the basis of that charge? Was there any basis for it at all?
No, the basis that the Republican National Committee used was that the intelligence officer I'd taken on my staff, when I oriented this investigation to the exposure of and proof of a conspiracy, was known to have a book, and the book was deemed to be anti-Semitic. This was childish, but this was the second in command of the Republican National Committee, and he told me I would have to dismiss this person from my staff.
Who was that person, sir? Who was that person?
The person?
Yes.
A Colonel Lee Lorraine.
Lee Lorraine.
Yeah.
And what was his book, do you recall? The title of his book?
The book they referred to was called Waters Flowing Eastward, which was a very castigation of the Jewish influence in the world.
What were some of the other charges made by Mr. Hayes against Mr. Reese?
Oh, just that Mr. Reese was utilizing this investigation for his own prominence inside the House of Representatives. That was the only charge Hayes could think of.
How would you describe the motivation of the people who created the foundations, the big foundations in the very beginning? What is, or what was their motivation?
Their motivation, well, let's take Mr. Carnegie as an example. His publicly declared and steadfast interest was to counteract the departure of the colonies from Great Britain.
Bingo. The Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, German, Russian, royal family. Let's not forget the king of the Netherlands, the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas, who changed their name after World War I to the Windsor family. And most of the stolen wealth of the Romanov family went under their coffers, their cousins. That's right, they were cousins. Oh, it's nefarious. We'll cover that in another video.
He was devoted to just putting the pieces back together again.
Would that have required the collectivism that they were dedicated to?
No. These policies or the Foundation's allegiance to these un-American concepts are all traceable to the transfer of the funds over into the hands of trustees, Mr. Griffin. Not the men who had a hand in the creation of the wealth that led to the endowment of, or as a use of that wealth for what we would call public purposes.
It was a subversion of the original intent then.
Oh yeah, completely so. And that we got into the world traditionally of bankers and lawyers.
How do you see that the purpose and direction of the major foundations has changed over the years to the present? What is it today?
Whole 100% behind meeting the cost of education such as it is presented through the schools and colleges of the United States on the subject of our history has proven our original ideas to be no longer practical. The future belongs to a collectivistic concept, and there's just no disagreement on this.
Why do the foundations generously support communist causes in the United States?
Well, because to them, what communism represents a means of developing what we call a monopoly. That is, the organization, will say, of large-scale industry into an administrable unit.
Do they think that they will be one of the administrators?
They will be the beneficiaries of it, yes.
Now, Norman Dodd was no dope, okay? We're talking about Yale, private schools growing up. He came from affluence, but he was an American, a constitutionalist. These criminal bankers, these industrialists, these internationalists, they have no borders. That's why they want a one-world government. They see no borders. And they've enslaved us in this country for 100 years directly through the Federal Reserve Crime Syndicate. Please, take the time to research everything that I'm showing you. This is the real agenda of our government.
At what point in your career did you become connected with the Reese Committee?
1953.
1953.
Yeah.
And what was that capacity, sir?
That was the capacity of what they call Director of Research for the Reese Committee.
Can you tell us what the Reese Committee was attempting to do?
Yes, I can tell you. It was operating and carrying out instructions embodied in a resolution passed by the House of Representatives, which was to investigate the activities of foundations as to whether or not these activities could justifiably be labeled un-American, without, I might say, defining what they meant by un-American. But that was the resolution, and the committee had then the task of selecting a council, and the council in turn had the task of selecting a staff, and he had to have somebody who would direct the work of that staff, and that was what they meant by the Director of Research.
What were some of the details, the specifics that you told the committee at that time?
Well, Mr. Griffin, in that report, I specifically, number one, defined what was, to us, what was meant by the phrase un-American. And we defined that in our way as being a determination to effect changes in the country by unconstitutional means. We have plenty of constitutional procedures, assuming that we wish to effect a change in the form of government or that sort of thing. And therefore, any effort in that direction which did not avail itself of the procedures which were authorized by the Constitution could be justifiably called un-American. That was the start of educating them up to that particular point. The next thing was to educate them as to the effect on the country as a whole of the activities of large endowed foundations over the then past 40 years.
What was that effect, sir?
That effect was to orient our educational system away from support of the principles embodied in the Declaration of Independence and implemented in the Constitution, and educated them over to the idea that the task now was, as a result of the orientation of education, to away from these briefly stated principles and self-evident truths. And that's what had been the effect of the wealth which constituted the endowments of those foundations that had been in existence over the largest portion of the span of 50 years, and holding them responsible for this change.
Why is it so hard to believe that people can conspire to do these things? I'll tell you why. Because the media, the movies, and everything else, conspiracy theories, oh, jokes, you're a conspiracy theorist, to cloud the truth, to hide the crimes. Know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And this is true. They're Luciferian Mason occurrences in today's world, mirroring the book of Revelation. Even if you do not believe in Jesus, you cannot deny what's happening in the world today. Referring to Revelation 2:9, I know the Rothschilds. So when they talk about the Jewish banking families, the Illuminati, the highest levels of them are the Rothschild family. One of the Illuminati, one of the powerful ones, the most the situation in the Middle East and the differences between Zionism and Judaism. I know many of you do not believe in the New Testament or the gospel of Jesus Christ, but the coincidences, if you want to call them that, or the